Let's break down the stats of the Modern Warfare FAL. The FAL was once pretty meta due to its insane killing potential after it got a little buff, but after it got nerfed, it disappeared from most people's loadouts. And speaking of nerfs, the FAL just got nerfed once again at the mid-season update. The video was done, but I'm fixing it, so everything in this video should be accurate as of when you watch it. Did it deserve to leave though, or are people still just sleeping on it? In order to find out, we're gonna have to look at its stats. But before we do that, let's talk about my recommended builds for it. In this build, we're using the monolithic suppressor, the XRK marksman barrel, the tac laser, the OK 3.0 sight, although I prefer to use a holographic sight, and the 30 round mags. And if you'd like to relive the FAL meta days, then you can use the FAL as a close quarter weapon, using this build. If you want to, you can swap the ADS stock for the tac laser, if you don't mind that laser shining in CQB. Just to let you know, both stats will be shown in the video, however, the long range version is the one we'll be sticking to today. So let's get into its stats, starting with mobility. Its ADS time is 280 milliseconds, which is pretty decent for a long range Modern Warfare rifle, and pretty great compared to Cold Wars. Its reload and reload add times are 3.53 seconds from empty and 2.5 when you're adding, so always make sure you leave at least one bullet in the mag, because that is a whole second of difference. And its mag cap is 30. Its movement and sprint speeds are decent enough, but I would still use a secondary movement weapon in order to move around the map. And its ADS strafe speed is 1.81 meters per second, which is a little bit on the higher side for long range weapons, but it's still pretty slow. And its sprint out and tac sprint out times are 260 and 390, which are average. Its aiming stability is 1.5T, and this is even better because it moves really slowly. And its bullet velocity is 1000 meters per second, so this is pretty good, but it definitely could be better. However, its rate of fire is 7.8 rounds per second, or 468 rounds per minute. And even though this is a pretty slow fire rate already, most people won't be hitting that cap. I know that whenever I get into a fight, I'll hit it for maybe one person, but after that, it's gonna drop a lot lower, increasing TTK times, because this is after all a semi-auto weapon. But when we add up all the numbers, we get a mobility score of 30. Its recoil seems pretty manageable, but it changes a lot. I think it's due to the aiming stability, although it's not supposed to have that much, but just something seems off. Maybe it's just randomized recoil. As you can see, these two patterns are quite different, and these were both taken at its maximum fire rate. So you're definitely gonna have to be doing some correcting using your mouse or a thumbstick. Because of this, it gets a recoil score of 31, and honestly, I would not try to hit the maximum fire cap past 40 meters. Now for its damage, just looking at this chart, it looks great, and if you see, it's extremely consistent. It has a damage drop-off range at 28 meters, and under that first damage range, it's got an extremely great headshot TTK, extremely amazing upper torso TTK, and average lower and limb TTKs. So definitely aim for the upper torso and you'll be beating so many weapons. And if you hit 2 headshots along with any shots anywhere else, you'll be beating most SMGs, since you'll be getting a 4-shot kill. And in the second damage range, its head TTK is amazing, while its upper torso, lower torso, and limb TTKs are extremely competitive. However, for long range, if you want to improve your TTK, it's really hard to get it down to 4 shots to kill, but to get it to 5, you'll probably need at least 1 headshot and 1 upper torso shot, or 2 headshots. However, you gotta remember this is at its maximum fire rate, and after 40 meters, I highly recommend that you do not spam that trigger because you will not be able to control its recoil or track your target. So it gets a damage score of 80. And when we add up all the categories, we get a final score of 141. This is an extremely great score, and this puts it into category 2. And any gun here is above average. However, I do gotta note that its damage score is the reason that it's so high. And you will not be hitting that fire rate cap under 28 meters most of the time, because if you're fighting one enemy, sure, you can probably do it. But when the second one comes, the third one comes, and the fourth one comes, you might start to get tired and you're not gonna be able to keep up that fire rate. Unless you use a macro, but don't do that because that's not very nice. And even after 40 meters, the recoil is just too much, so you wouldn't want to hit it anyways. So what's the best way to use it? Long range, close range, mid range? I would say that it's a great all-around weapon. It's a perfect semi-auto, all-purpose weapon. It's great at any situation, theoretically. And this is why I like to run the holographic sight, because I don't destroy my FOV when engaging targets at close range, and I can still kind of attack targets at longer ranges. However, if you do choose to do this as a long range only weapon, then the VLK or the Cannon Hybrid is the way to go, and you will actually have a pretty good time. However, when you're fighting things like the C58, if they're just spamming at you, you're probably going to lose the fight because your recoil is a lot harder to control, and even though your TTKs are better, they're just probably going to win at longer ranges. Full auto is really hard to compete with because once you start missing shots or they hit you, you'll start to flinch, and once that happens, it's just a cycle that's really hard to break unless you lose their line of sight and pop up again and try to hit them. However, if the enemy is tap firing a full auto weapon, then yes, you would actually have an advantage because you have better stability and better TTKs. And at that point, every headshot matters. So train yourself to go for headshots and upper torso shots. However, I still wouldn't really recommend this as a long range only option. With things like the Pharah out there that just have way too good of a TTK, there's just no competing with them. Because sure, you can make them flinch, but they'll just come back on target because their rate of fire is much higher than yours, and you'll probably start flinching and missing your shots. And this is why semi-auto weapons really don't have a place in Warzone. What's the point of having a semi-auto weapon that loses its maximum TTK potential past 40 meters when you have full auto weapons that can be pinpoint accurate up to 185? When you use a semi-auto weapon, part of your brain has to focus on hitting that maximum fire rate, then the other part has to focus on correcting its recoil, and another part has to track the target because most targets aren't just standing still. And with a full auto weapon, all you gotta do is hold the trigger and concentrate on tracking your target. And probably the saddest part about this all is that the FAL has a bullet velocity of 1000 meters per second. The Pharah, even if it's tap firing, will probably beat the FAL at extremely long ranges like 300 meters because its bullet velocity is much higher and it will be hitting more of its shots. It won't have to account for bullet drop or trying to lead its target too much, but with the FAL, you will have to. And if the FAL had a higher bullet velocity, then maybe it could have an awesome role as more of a marksman rifle type of weapon that actually functions in the game and is worth using. However, there's not really any weapon in the game that fits this role. The marksman rifles from Modern Warfare use sniper ammo, and you just are limited to way little ammunition for something that you probably want to spam fire. And the tactical rifles from Cold War, well, they kind of got nerfed to oblivion. And we'll be covering the Type 63 and the DMR-14 next Wednesday. And you'll see exactly what happened to them after the nerfs and whether I recommend them or not. But if you're wanting to run a semi-auto weapon, the FAL is probably going to be your best bet. It's pretty great up close, pretty great at mid-range, and it is okay at longer ranges. So because it has a pretty decent ADS time and amazing TTKs, I actually would recommend that you use this if you want to switch things up. It's pretty great for medium and close range, so why not give it a try? And even for long range, you could do a lot worse. So that's the FAL. Have you used it recently? And if so, how did you run it? Let me know in the comments. And if there's any build, question, topic, or idea you want me to cover, let me know and you may see it on the next Community Wednesday, or I can probably just also answer it right in the comment section. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.